Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me at Unbreakable-You. I'm so happy you're here with me today. This whole month, I'm talking about restructuring your social life after heartbreak. And before you were hurt, you talked differently. Maybe you were the louder one. Maybe you were just more open. Maybe you said yes when you meant yes, and maybe you said yes even when you meant no. Maybe you had learned to shrink yourself just to keep the peace, to agree when you didn't actually agree. Maybe you laughed when something wasn't even funny, just to fit in. Maybe you over explained yourself to someone who had already decided that they weren't going to listen. Teaches us to communicate in ways that just keeps us safe. And the problem is, safe is not always honest. And when you do the work of healing, you change, you grow, you start valuing different things because your values shift, your boundaries shift, and suddenly the way you've been talking to people doesn't fit anymore. You have been in mid conversation and caught yourself performing, nodding when you didn't agree, laughing off something that actually stung, oversharing with someone who doesn't deserve your vulnerability. So ask yourself, have you been doing that? That's mismatch between who you've became on the other side and how you're still showing up on the outside. That's what I want to talk about today. I'm Olga Benyaminov, empowerment coach, healing coach, and the founder of Unbreakable-You, an author, and my recent book is Unbreakable-You, and I hope you got a hold of that. It comes with a journal, and I talk about all of that healing process. But today, I want to talk about communication that actually heals. Not just what you say, but things you allow. What do you tolerate? And what you finally learned to walk away from. Now, the first thing I want to do is cover how hurt patterns show up in communication. Because when we experience pain in relationships, any pain, betrayal, rejection, emotional unavailability, manipulation, what we learn, our nervous system learns to adapt. We develop communication strategies that were designed to protect us in that specific environment. And those strategies made sense then because they were survival. But survival strategies don't always make sense in life that you're building. They tend to stick around long after the danger is gone. So here's the most common ones that I see with many men and women that I coach. The first one is phoning. Phoning is a pattern of making yourself agreeable, pleasant, more easy at all costs. The women who phone have learned that their needs, create conflict. So these women don't express themselves. The woman that is phoning learned that she just reads a room obsessively. She molds herself to what other people seem to want. That kind of woman over apologizes. She takes up as little space as possible and she calls it being easy to be around. But here's the truth: phoning is not kindness, it's self abandonment with a smile. The next thing that I've seen the pattern of oversharing with unsafe people. This is the one that catches so many people off guard because oversharing can feel like vulnerability. And vulnerability is supposed to be a good thing, right? But there's a difference between vulnerability and disclosure. Vulnerability is sharing something real with someone who has earned that. Disclosure is just sharing something real with anyone who will listen because you're just desperate to be seen and you haven't yet learned to be discreet, and how to keep that to yourself and who is actually safe for you. When we share our deepest wounds with people who haven't actually earned our trust, we set ourselves to be dismissed, to be minimized, or in the worst case, to have that vulnerability used against us. And every time that happens, it just confirms our fear that we are too much. On a flip side, undersharing with safe people. You've been hurt by being opened, so you close up. You have someone in your life who genuinely cares about you, who is consistently showing up, who has proven that they can handle the real you, and you still keep this in the surface. Because somewhere in you, vulnerability equals danger. That's it. This is the loneliest pattern of all. To be surrounded by people who actually love you fully and not letting them in. Because healing asks you to learn new skills, not openness with everyone, and not closeness with everyone, but the ability to actually read who is safe and to be truly present with people, with those people, while maintaining appropriate boundaries with those that are not. The next thing I see is the communication style. Women that have done their work have a different communication style. So what does it look like on the other side? What does healed communication actually look and feel like in practice? There are 4 quantities of healed communication, and I want you to just listen to these and train yourself to do that. The first one is clear. A woman who has done her work says what she means. It's not a 20-minute softening and just to say things. It's not questioning when she's actually meaning to say a statement. She learned that clarity is the act of respect to herself and to people around her. Because vagueness keeps the peace in short terms and destroyed in long term. Being open doesn't have to be hurtful. Being open is to say what you feel. And if the other person doesn't know how to accept it and they get upset about the way you feel, that's on them. But you got to be able to share it. The next communication that's important is being warm. Healing doesn't make you cold or armored. Should not. In fact, true healing makes you warmer because now you're no longer defending yourself every moment. You can actually be present. You can actually listen. You can be genuinely interested in someone else because now you're not consistently managing your own threat level. Another important communication skill is boundaries. Have a boundaried communication. And you know what you will not accept. And you will say so calmly, clearly, without drama. Ghosting someone is not the right way. Exploding is also not the right way. And you should not be giving 47 chances and then torch the relationship. You say what works for you and what doesn't, and you mean it. And if that boundary doesn't work for them, then it doesn't. But what's important is that you follow through with your boundary. And the last one is being present. You are actually there in a conversation. You're not rehearsing what you're going to say next. Not checking the phone, not strategizing, being present, listening, engaged, because you're no longer afraid of connection because you have chosen that. Clear, warm, boundaried, and present. This is the communication style that changes your relationships, your life, and how you will start experiencing the world. So I want to give you two scripts to practice this. Two scripts to practice this week, two actually things that you can say in two common situations that challenge healed women the most. The first one is when someone dismisses you. Our old pattern of someone being dismissive towards us is to go quiet. You start second guessing yourself. You start wondering if maybe you were overreacting. You feel the string for hours, for days, and then you say nothing. So, what should be your new pattern? Your new pattern should say, actually, I want to come back to just what happened. When you said X, it felt dismissive to me. I would like to be heard on that. And that is it. You don't need long speeches. You don't need justification to why you deserve to be heard. You just need to name what happened and ask for what you need. That is boundaried communication. That is clear communication, and this is what healed communication looks. The second type of script is when you want to share something real with someone you trust. The old pattern would be you keep it light. You just say, I'm fine. You tell the funny version of the heart story as you go home feeling unseen. So I want to give you this ability for your new pattern. You should ask, can I tell you something real? I have been struggling with whatever that might be. I don't need an advice. I just wanted to say it out loud to someone that I trust. And it's important to say, I don't need an advice. And I often ask my friends, are you telling me to get an advice, or are you just telling me because you want to share that? Because we often jump to giving advices. And sometimes the other person doesn't want to hear that advice. That phrase, can I tell you something real, is an invitation for a real connection. It just signals the other person that it's genuine. It gives them permission to grow up with you, to show up with you, to really show up for you. And it's one of the most powerful things that you can do to deepen connections. So try that. Try those two this week. Notice what happens. The way you communicate is the way you experience the world. If you communicate from fear, you will experience a world that feels threatening. If you communicate from self-abandonment, you will experience a world that takes and doesn't give back. If you communicate from scarcity, from greediness, from being guarded, from performing, you will never actually feel known. But if you communicate with clarity, warmth, and honest boundaries, if you let people see the real you while protecting yourself with discernment, you will experience a completely different world. A world that reflects who you actually are. That world is available to you right now. It starts with what you say next. If this lands with you, if you know that your communication patterns are holding you back from relationships and from the life that you actually want, I want to work with you on this. This is exactly the kind of deep work, transformational work we do with my one-on-one coaching, with my group coaching, and with my couple coaching. Message me to start a conversation about coaching. Let's do this together. And if this resonates with you, come back again for next week. We're going to continue on this theme of communication, and I really want to share how to build that real community. I'm not talking about a network. I'm talking about a tribe after your trust has been destroyed. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about being surrounded by people and not feeling alone anymore. I'm looking forward to see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining me today.